There was a fabulous discussion that our Wednesday night group had about goals. Do we need them? How do we know if they are realistic? Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to upgrade our everyday lives. I want to share with you a question that somebody asked me, and it got me thinking. And they said, how do you know if a goal is realistic? What would you say? Anyone here wants to weigh in with that? I'm going to scale the question back a little bit. Hi, Bev, and hi, Barbara, and hi, everyone else that is joining us. So let's set the question back. How important is it to have a goal in life? Anything? Is it important to have a goal? It gives you direction. Okay, I think that's a good point.
We're just saying it is really important to have a goal, so you kind of know where you're going to, set your sights on something and work towards something.
Okay, I definitely hear that.
Yeah, I think goals are good. They're important to have. Maybe realistic goals as well. A bit like what you were saying earlier. But it also expands your knowledge and your understanding, I feel. And obviously ultimately gives you something, bigger goal and something you can accomplish at the end of it.
Right, and yes, it gives you direction. Saying that goals can motivate. You're right, goals can motivate you. Anyone else wants to weigh in on whether you think goals are a good point? We're going to get to you raised a good point when you're saying that the goals should be realistic, but we'll get to that. Hopefully, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But meanwhile, does anyone feel like goals are not important? This is your time. Now or forever. Hold your...
Gila, I think it's good to have that purpose in life, first of all. So to know or have an idea of what your purpose is to then reach a goal. Because if you don't have any form of purpose, then what is the point of having a goal?
I want to tell you a story. And then I guess we'll find out if anyone has changed their mind about it as well. So has anyone here heard about the organization called Yad Eliezer in Israel? So it's actually a massive, massive organization in Israel. And one of the reasons why it's quite common is why it's quite well known outside of Israel is because a lot of families or groups or trips that go to Israel, let's say for a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, one of the things that they'll do, or like groups or tours that go, is they will have a morning or an afternoon where they go and they volunteer at Yad Eliezer. So what is this Yad Eliezer? It's a massive organization that helps poor families. So one of the big things that they do is they package up food and they send food deliveries to families in need in Israel. Now, how did it start? So there was a woman, regular woman, her name was Hadassah Weasel. And she never had the goal of starting this mammoth organization that was going to tackle poverty in Israel. So how did Yad Eliezer start? She was just a school teacher. And one day she was out and she met one of her old students. Now, this old student, this person that she met that had been her student a few years back was now married and had a small child, and she's walking around in Jerusalem in the boiling heat. It's the summer, and she's wearing like wellies, like rubber boots. So Hadassah looks at, she notices her student, she says hello to her, she looks at the baby and makes the small talk or whatever, and then she notices her boots and she says, "How comes you're wearing boots?" So the woman, she looks a little bit embarrassed, but she says, "Listen, I can't afford to buy summer shoes." So she's wearing the boots. So Hadassah's Weasel is like, I can't let my student, who is just a new mom,
walk around in boots because she can't afford to buy a pair of shoes. She opens up her wallet, she sees what money she has in there. She has the equivalent of about $40, and she gives it to the young lady, and she says to her, here's 40, whatever it is, go buy yourself a new pair of shoes. And that's it. That's how it that's how the story went. Now, a few weeks later, she meets this lady again, right? This former student of hers. And she looks at her, and she chats a little bit to her, and then she sees she's still wearing those same rubber boots. So she says to her, she says, how comes you're still wearing those boots? And the woman at this point looks really, really embarrassed. And she says, thank you so much. It was so kind that you gave me that money. But how could I go and buy myself shoes when I didn't have enough money? I didn't have enough food to feed my child, right? And at this point, Hadassah realized that she was dealing with much more than a young couple that couldn't afford to buy a pair of shoes, right? The weather appropriate clothing. She realized this is a young family that unfortunately are struggling to make ends meet. And it's, I mean, as much as we don't like to it happens in every community. And she felt like, I've got to do something. And that is how Yad Eliezer started, right? This regular woman who had no goals, who didn't one day, sit down and say, I want to start this organization in Israel that is going to tackle poverty, and sit down with her team and said, this is how we are going to tackle poverty. It was an organization that started by one woman saying, I can't let a woman I know struggle financially, so I'm going to help her. And then, obviously, once she had started giving this woman money, she found out about other families that were struggling, and that's how it kind of snowballed. So yes, you're right, you can have a small goal that leads to the main goal. But what I want to sort of throw out here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is perhaps it's not important to have a goal, because Hadassah Weasel didn't have a goal, and look what she managed to build up. What would you say to that?
Human nature.
Human nature is
is something from within. So it was like a mitzvah, but not expecting anything back, but something that, how to say, if you're a decent person, or if you can step in somebody else's shoes, literally, she was doing a good deed. So it's something that she would just do naturally, and from something that's natural then is established more, like a bigger picture, like a little acorn to a.
So I would say you're 100% right? She was doing what felt like human nature to her. I would argue that most people, it's not human nature to them, right? Like, how often, full disclosure, right? How often do we walk past someone in need and not notice the need, or just, feel like there's not much I can do, right? There was something obviously within her that stirred her to say, you know what, I can't let this be, right? I can't let it be that a young family doesn't have enough food to feed their children. But my question, my question, so Bev is raising a good point. I'm going to read out what she writes. You can still have a personal goal to aim for that might be small to others, but big to you. And I think you're 100% right. So let me just ask the question again. Do you still, and I want to get back to what Bev says as well about the personal goals, and I want to also talk about the small to you or to others or whatever, because I think that's a really good point as well. Do we still feel, regardless of this story, that it's important to have a goal? Yes, Doris is yes. Do you want to share with us why?
Okay, let me check my translate. Yes.
Go ahead.
When you have goals, you can have a sense of what you want.
Yes.
in your life, in your job, depends the goals.
Right. And I would argue also, I would say what you said is a very, very good point. And I would say perhaps the story with Hadassah Weasel and how she started Yad Eliezer shows exactly what you're saying, because she didn't have the goal of starting this big organization that was going to tackle poverty in Israel. But she had as a mission and a purpose, and perhaps that's also what Lindsay was telling us before, and a goal in her life was to help others, right? To do chesed, to do kindness, to do big kindness, right? Because someone who doesn't have that as a goal, they won't necessarily notice the need, right? You know, you could walk past someone. It's very easy to walk past someone in the street who's wearing odd shoes for the weather and not necessarily think to yourself, oh my gosh, like what is it? What's going on? Does that mean that there is a need there? I think the fact that she started that organization, right? And it started from a small thing. And I think perhaps that's also what Bev was saying, that, you know, you can have a small goal, right? For her, the goal may not have been, I want to start this Yad Eliezer organization. And I would probably guess that had you turned to her and said, just before she met that woman and said, this is what you're going to end up doing, she probably would have thought, that's way beyond me, right? Because a lot of times when we set ourselves a goal, before I weigh in here, let me throw the question out to you. How do we know if a goal is realistic? Any thoughts on that? Because we've kind of established that it's important to have a goal because it motivates us, it directs us, many other reasons that we kind of spoke about. But how do we know if that goal is realistic? Or is it important to know whether a goal is realistic?
It's all about pushing yourself. You don't know how far you can go until you're in it. And ultimately, that's how you reach your goal. Yeah, you might reach halfway and you might say, you know what, this is really not for me, it's not working. But you can say, you know, you raise your hand and say, I've tried. You know, I've done my best. Move on, sort of thing. Move to another goal or whatever you want to call it. Accomplishment.
Yeah. And I would say that most of the time we underestimate ourselves, right? I think most of the times we're not, you know, we don't push ourselves as far as we can go. We don't push ourselves as hard as we can. We don't shoot as high as we could go because we underestimate. We underestimate what we're capable of. And if you think about it this way, you can have an army which has the most sophisticated weaponry in the world. Will they be successful in war? Any thoughts? Will they be successful? Anyone? What do you think? Yes, no, you're not sure? It is a bit of a trick question. You guys know me already. They're like, she's up. Will they be successful if they have the state-of-the-art weaponry? The best.
No. It depends who's in it.
Look at the Romans.
On whether they know how to use it. Right? Like if you have,
you had nothing.
I'm sure Marcia will relate to this, but like if you have the best camera in the world, does it make you the best photographer? No, right? It depends on whether you know how to use it, right? And if you go back to the army, if they don't know how to shoot and how to aim for the target, then they're not going to win the war, right? It's almost as though it's useless. And it's the same thing with us, right? We have within us a divine soul, right? Our soul is literally God breathed it into us. It's a part. It's from God, right? And we almost always underestimate ourselves, right? You know, whatever it comes with, when it comes to thinking what we can achieve, when it comes to thinking how far we can push ourselves, when it comes to thinking how much we can connect to God, when it comes to thinking how religious we are, even something like that, we almost always underestimate ourselves. And if we want to take those weapons, right, those potential, those tools that God gave us and use them to the fullest, then we have to aim high. And what Dvora said earlier is that, okay, if you don't succeed, so you don't succeed, right? Let's say you shoot for the stars and you say, this year, I am going to conquer my anger. This year, I am going to pray once a week. Or this year, I am going to, take my Shabbat up one level. Whatever it is that you're gonna do, and you realize you go all in, and you realize it's not for you. So you adjust and you can do it. But most of the time, we don't get to where we could get to because it's not in our brain, it's not in our head, or it's not, we have those goals and we sort of think, that's not for me, I'll share with you, I guess, a relatable story that I think that it's a little bit personal, but you know what, we're all amongst friends, so it's all good. So I was mentioning to I was mentioning to my kids that I had this idea to write a book, and I mentioned it to two of my kids, and one of them said to me, she was like, wow, that's so cool. And one of my other kids said, you're writing a book, and she just laughed. And I thought to myself, like, literally, that's the two parts of ourselves, right? When we have a goal in our life, right? When we decide, I want to take that next step, wherever that next step is, there's those two voices in our head. The one that's like, wow, that's so cool. Wow, go for it, right? Wow, see how whether you can achieve it or not. And then there's the other one that just laughs at us and thinks, you're going to do that, but you're not, I don't know, you're not that type of person. You're not that type of person. You're not a religious person. Like, you're not observant, whatever you want, whatever label you want to say to yourself. And the question is, which one is louder? Always the voice of, sorry?
The one you want to hear.
The one, oh, that's a good point. That is a good point.
And the one you want to hear is always.
Sorry,
It's-
that's Polly's listening to everything.
Oh, so good to hear. So good to have.
The fail is always the louder voice.
It's usually that voice that laughs at us and says to us,
Yeah, right.
you're gonna, yeah, right. You're gonna do that. That's cute that you think you can do that, right? Welcome everyone that's just joined us on Instagram as well. Lots of people joining. It's great to have you all here. But the question is, which, great. So we have those voices in our head, and we always have those voices in our head. The question is, which one do we choose to listen to as well, right? Which one do we bring front and center? Because it's usually, that voice that says, wow, that's so cool, go for it, is a very quiet voice, especially when it's meaningful. And the one that laughs at us is usually very loud, but we get to choose which one we listen to.
Gila, when I see your cakes on Facebook, my initial reaction is what your first thought was say, wow, that's amazing, that cake. And then I put it into my head of being in a supermarket and buying the products, and then being like, it won't look like Gila's, but in a jokey way. But I like to look at the Facebook and think that's the potential that you could make a cake like Gila.
But what?
I feel exhausted trying to do it.
But, I think we do that the whole time to ourselves. Okay, and cake is a big deal, because some of us are good at baking, some of us are good at drawing, some of us are good at nothing. I don't know, whatever it is, right? When it comes to the important things, right? You look at those women that seem to always be patient with their kids, or you look at those women that seem to have a genuine spirituality, or they seem to be able to bring such Jewish pride into their kids, right? To give that Jewish pride to their kids, or they always seem to be taking making Judaism the folklore of their life, and you think to yourself, like me, I couldn't do that, right? Like, I'm just not a patient mom, or my kids just don't cooperate, or whatever it is that we think about. We think, I'm just not religious, right? Whatever it is that voice tells us, and the truth, it's just a voice. It's just a voice, right? And that voice is stopping us from that goal, because the truth is, like, as Deborah said, and I think it was great what you said, and I'm going to keep coming back to it, if you don't mind, was that if you have that big goal, right, and you don't achieve it, so what, right? Like, at least you've tried. You've probably still gotten further ahead than you would have had you not gone for the goal at all, right? So what? So what? Okay. Any questions or any thoughts so far on this? Any questions or any thoughts? Okay, so just to summarize where we were at, we looked at goals and why they are important, because they motivate us and they hopefully stretch us and help us become the people that we could become, right? And we also spoke about that we often underestimate ourselves, right? And usually when we set a goal, we're setting a goal that's probably too cautious, right? Most of us are too afraid of failure, right? And sometimes it's a fear of success as well. Like, if I'm successful, and we don't necessarily follow this through in our thought process, but sometimes, like, if I'm successful, what does that mean, right? Like, what does that mean if I actually manage to follow this goal through? But we often underestimate ourselves. So when we set our goals, we have to aim high. We have to aim high, because it's like going back to those the army, right? The soldiers in the army, they have the state-of-the-art equipment. They have this amazing potential, amazing soul, right? But you got to learn how to shoot it. You got to know how to aim it. Otherwise, it's just not worthwhile. So, to answer the question that we started with, how do we know if a goal is realistic? So let me throw that question back up to you. After everything that we've kind of discussed, how do we know that a goal is realistic? Any thoughts?
I don't think we do know until we try. And I think, you have to try, otherwise you'll never know, basically.
I would venture to agree, right? I would say yes. There's only one way of knowing, and the truth is, like, even if you try and you fail, so you may fail the first time. It doesn't mean you're going to fail, the second time you try or the third time you try. In fact, we're told that a tzaddik, a righteous person, is someone who falls 7 times and then gets up. Right? It's not someone that doesn't fail at all. It's someone that despite failing 7 times, they get up again, right? They have that big goal. They have, that goal there and front and center. And how do you know if it's realistic? You don't. You just got to keep on, as Marcia told us, you just got to keep on trying. And I would even take it one step further, that even if you fail, firstly, you probably still succeeded more than you would have if you wouldn't have tried. And secondly, you try again and you try again.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear what you thought about this episode. What are your thoughts on knowing if a goal is realistic? You can get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram at Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. Thank you and have a great day.